No limits. Just purpose.
This episode is called What That Built in Me. Because this isn't about where I came from anymore. It's about what all of that formed inside me. There was a point where I stopped asking why I was the way I was and started noticing how it showed up. That shit didn't come with a big moment or some dramatic realization. It came quietly, almost unnoticed at first. See, episode 3 was about what built me. This episode is about what that building is turning into. Not in a clean, linear way. Not in some overnight transformation that looks good from the outside. But in the small, uncomfortable moments where patterns start revealing themselves. The moments where life slowed down just enough for me to hear myself think. Where I couldn't outrun my own reactions anymore. Where I had to sit with things I used to move past without question. I began noticing my reactions before I ever tried to explain them. One of the first places I noticed it was in a memory from when I was really young, maybe 6 or 7, sitting quietly while adults were in the room, carrying something heavy they weren't saying out loud. Nothing was directed at me. No one was explaining anything. But the air felt charged, and without knowing why, I knew to stay alert. I knew to be quiet. I knew to watch. That was the start of it. Learning awareness before understanding. Learning readiness before language. And that early conditioning followed me forward. The way tension settled in my shoulders, even on calm days. The way control started to feel like protection. The way rest felt earned, not given. I ain't choose that on purpose. It formed in me before I could make sense of it. And this isn't me condemning it or trying to erase it. This is me acknowledging it, staying present with it, while I'm still becoming. For a long time, especially in my teenage years, I didn't think in terms of growth at all. What those early experiences built in me wasn't just alertness, it was resilience. It was street smarts. It was the ability to read people, read situations, and move accordingly. It built a drive in me, a hunger to keep going, even when I felt like I was on my own. I learned how to carry myself, how to stand alone, how to take on the streets alone, how to take on responsibility early without an instruction manual. See, my mindset wasn't about who I wanted to become yet. It was about who I needed to be to survive my environment. I thought in terms of staying sharp, staying ahead of trouble, staying useful. I learned early that hesitation costs you. That awareness was currency, that respect had to be protected. Over time, those instincts stopped feeling like something I used and started feeling like who I was. Quitting something, starting something new, making a bold decision that proved I was different now. I thought growth was loud, visible, obvious, but real growth didn't show up like that for me. It showed up quietly. It showed up as awareness, as noticing, as catching myself in moments that used to pass without interruption. I noticed how often I was braced for impact, even on calm days. How my body stayed ready for problems that weren't actually there. How silence didn't feel peaceful, it felt unfinished. How rest felt like a risk instead of a requirement. None of that came from my current life. It came from an old one that trained me to stay alert, to stay ready, to never fully let my guard down. That awareness didn't come with belief. So if you're listening to this and finding yourself nodding without even realizing it, this might be the moment you recognize yourself too. See, recognizing this awareness, it comes with discomfort. Because once you see a pattern, you can't unsee it. Once you realize you're reacting instead of choosing, you can't hide behind personality or habit anymore. You start to recognize how much your behavior isn't about who you want to be, but about who you had to be at one point just to get by. I started to see how that wiring showed up everywhere, in how I worked. It showed up in how I loved, and how I listened, and how I rested. If something mattered, I tightened up. If things were quiet, I filled that space. What I used to call discipline was often fear wearing responsibilities close. What I call strength was sometimes just protection I never learned when to stand down. See, that protection made sense once. In my early adult years, it allowed me to function when everything felt like it was on my shoulders. I learned how to carry work, pressure, and responsibility myself. I learned how to be the one who figured it out, who didn't need help, who didn't wait on anyone else to move. That mindset helped me survive early adulthood the same way it helped me survive my younger years. By staying in control, by staying sharp, by staying ready. But slowly, that same control started creating distance. It made relationships harder. It made trust feel unnecessary. It made leadership feel lonely. What once helped me stand on my own started separating me from others. And I didn't notice it at first because I was still getting things done. It kept things from falling apart when I didn't have room for mistakes. It kept me focused when distraction could have cost me everything. But over time, it started doing something else. It started isolating me. It made it hard to delegate, hard to trust, hard to let things be handled without my involvement. Not because I didn't believe in others, but because somewhere along the way, being in control started to feel like being safe. See, that's a dangerous line to live on. Because when control equals safety, everything becomes your responsibility. Every outcome, every failure, every loose end. You stop resting because rest feels like negligence. You stop trusting because trust feels like exposure. You stay busy not because you need to be, but because stillness starts asking questions you're not ready to answer. This isn't about blaming the past. It's about understanding it. When you never stop to examine what shapes your instincts, they keep staring you in places where you already been over and over and over again. See, you call it discipline. You call it work ethic. You'll call it being responsible. But underneath it, you will still be operating from a place that was designed for survival, not growth. I began asking myself different questions. Not what happened to me, but how it still lived in me. Why calm made me uneasy. Why slowing down felt irresponsible instead of restorative. Why being needed felt safer than being supported. Why I felt more comfortable carrying weight than sharing it. Those questions don't come with quick answers. They don't resolve themselves in one conversation or one moment of clarity. They sit with you. They follow you through your day. They show up in your relationships, your work, your parenting, your expectations of yourself. They surface at night when everything is quiet and there's nothing left to distract you from your own thoughts. That's when I realized something important. Survival doesn't stop just because the danger does. Sometimes it keeps running quietly in the background, shaping how you respond long after the threat is gone. And if you never slow down enough to notice it, you'll keep living from a place that was only meant to be temporary. I'm not saying survival was wrong. It did exactly what it was supposed to do. It kept me alive. It kept me moving. It kept me staying in moments where breaking wasn't an option. But survival was never meant to be the foundation for everything else. It doesn't teach you how to rest. It doesn't teach you how to trust. It doesn't teach you how to build with patience instead of urgency. It just teaches you how to get through. And getting through and growing are not the same thing. This episode isn't me speaking from the other side of this. I'm not past it. I'm not above it. I'm speaking from inside the process. From the space where awareness has started, but the work is still unfolding. Where I'm learning to pause instead of react, to choose instead of default, to sit with discomfort instead of immediately trying to fix it. I'm learning that awareness carries responsibility. And if you hear this isn't me telling you what to do. It's me naming something you might already feel. Once you see something clearly in yourself, you don't get to unnotice. You don't have to fix everything at once, but you do have to be honest about what you see. Once you see it, you're accountable for what you do with that knowledge. I'm learning that slowing down doesn't mean letting go of discipline. It means applying it with intention. That rest isn't weakness. That trust it's not carelessness. That release and control doesn't mean abandoning responsibility. I'm learning that the version of me that survived, he deserves respect. But he doesn't get to keep deciding where I'm going. See, that's not rejection. That's evolution. And evolution is always uncomfortable. Because it asks you to choose instead of react. To be present instead of braced. To move with faith instead of constant vigilance. See, this is where the work actually begins. Not the loud kind, not the visible kind, the eternal kind. The kind that changes how you respond long before it changes what you do. And what I'm starting to realize now is this. Awareness isn't the end of the journey. It's the line you cross when you can no longer go back to being unconscious. Once you see it, you carry it. Once you name it, you're responsible for what comes next. Because the question isn't whether survival shaped me. The real question is, what happens next when I stop letting it decide for me? This is where the story turns. Awareness is the moment you realize there's no going back to sleep. Once you notice it, it stays with you. Once you name it, you have to decide what you're going to do with it. In the next episode, I'm not talking about survival or awareness any longer. I'm talking about application. I'm going to talk about fatherhood, parenthood, about what happens when all of this wiring, all of this awareness starts showing up in real decisions, real moments, and real consequences. about how responsibility stopped being something I carried and started being something I chose. That's where this really gets tested. That's the threshold. And to you, who parts of this feels familiar, this just isn't my story. If you ever felt like you had to grow up early, stay sharp, stay ready, carry weight quietly, or figure life out without a guide, then you know this space too. Awareness doesn't mean you're broken. It means you're paying attention. And paying attention is where change actually starts. No limits, just purpose. Let's build.
Black people and brown people are the only group of people, and poor whites, who didn't use free enterprise and capitalism to set themselves free.
No limits, just purpose.